Hey guys, and welcome back to the Ramble. I am your humble host, Maria Legier. Way too boring to be a radical. And this is Times Are Tough, Part 4. Times are tough, gentlemen. A lot of us are angry, pissed off, tired of the whole thing, the whole scene, the whole sham. It seems that no matter how we write, how we speak, how we conduct ourselves when trying to shine a light on male-specific issues, it just don't work. No one is listening because no one cares to listen. No one cares to listen because everyone has been listening to voices stating that men have no issues that need fixing, whereas women do. And if they do, it is something deeply rooted within men themselves, and so men need to fix themselves. Society plays no part in the treatment of men by society. After all, only men are able to act within society. And this is probably the reason why the Norwegian government has begun their third deep dive exploration and so and such into women's health. All fine and dandy, of course, until one comes to the stark realization that they have yet to do one on men's health. 2 inquiries into women's health already, a third one on the way, and none on men's health. It could just be plain old sexism, obviously. Alas, that does not happen towards men, apparently, and this is decided by those who decided that women are the only ones who can experience gender discrimination. It is very fitting, given that these are the same people perpetrating the sexism towards men. If the word sexism annoys you, substitute for neglecting men's well-being. Almost makes one believe that men aren't considered to be as important as women in this society of ours that just hates women ever so much. And our Department of Equality consists of approximately 90% women, 10% men. Anyone not believing this to result in a department that is remarkably gender-biased are blind, deaf, dumb, and clinically shot through the head with a 12-gauge shotgun. It really is a strange thing, considering how important the Department of Equality has made the whole gender representation thing. How hard and heavy they have pushed for affirmative hiring of women where men are overrepresented. Unless it is the dangerous, dirty, low-status jobs, of course. It comes to light that equal representation of the sexes are not important in the department that focuses on equality between the sexes, or any other place where men are a minority. It would be easy to believe that this is one of those places where an equal distribution of the genders would be advantageous, but I guess not. Education is another example. There are plenty of these professions where it doubtlessly would be positive with a more gender-balanced workforce. 80% of teachers, 90% of kindergarten teachers are women. Yet, women are the majority, and so sprinkling that ever so beautiful gender representation thing in these women-dominated fields are not important to the Department of Equality. More women is a sign of gender equality, more men a sign of gender discrimination. It feels as though I'm repeating myself. Allow me to repeat myself once more. Honk, honk. As it stands, more and more kids are growing up with little to no male role models, be that in their homes or in their schools. And this is not a good thing to anyone but those who have decided that men are not a good thing. Masculinity is a terrible thing to these people. And so the less of it children have to deal with, the better. Apparently. It is important to remember that, to these types of people, masculinity is an ideology. As perverse as that sounds, that is the way they see it. Cultural determinism in the works, baby. Cultural determinism. And what a wonderful phrase. What a fantastic way to tell us that we are not animals, that we are not biological creatures. The ones who decide what is or is not proper representation of gender see no problems with there being a majority of women in the Department for Equality, despite this arguably going against their own laws, rules and regulations, effectively rendering it a department not for gender equality, but a department for women's equality, or just for women full stop. Heavily bathed in the waning light of feminist ideology, as are all good things in this dawn of the mighty hysteria. And the same, to the surprise of absolutely no one, applies to the field of gender studies. 90% women, 10% men. Approximately. No wonder, since most of the time spent in such a hellhole is spent shitting on men and masculinity and showcasing the terrible tremors of neurotic women everywhere, who are taught and told to fear and mistrust the mean masculine men. And this in turn makes it so that those who dabble in researching things to do with gender are mainly women with an obvious feminist bent, thus giving more resources and more time to researching things that only affect women and things that only interest women. Studying gender then effectively means studying women, all of course conducted under the piss-yellow light from the sun of feminist fancy. It becomes nothing but yet another arm of the feminist indoctrination machine, a tool to find the answers they already decided are there, women good, men bad, Women suffer, men's fault. Men suffer less than women, obviously, men's fault. That's the conclusion from the get-go. Now, to find the reasons for it. Sound scientific research right there, gentlemen. The reasons for this suffering they already have found decades prior. Men, masculinity, patriarchy. The ideology of masculinity, trademarked, is toxic and dangerous, and the patriarchy made it so. This is known to be truth, because the APA told me that it is truth. The field of gender studies is, if I may be so bold, a feminist echo chamber. As it appears, are all the social sciences. If not feminist, it ain't social sciences. It's a damned shame when ideology trumps the pursuit of facts. Ideology will always skew findings to its fancy. Ideology is not objective, when the objective is ideology. And given the in-group preference of women, I struggle to see how it could not be biased. Women will care more for other women than they will care for men. And so too do men. Men tend to care more for women than they do other men. Or themselves, for that matter. It must be that misogyny, that unfaltering hatred of women so ingrained in the bones and skin and muscular tissue of men and of society that made it so. No wonder, then, that the Department of Equality focuses solely on women and the issues, read neurosis of women. There's only women there, for Pete's sake. And these are the people who decide what is and is not discriminatory, what is or is not equal. This is the place from where the narrative flows in regards to the whole gender war nonsense. Women have no power, feminism wields no influence, despite making up 90% of the department there to decide whether or not anything is discriminatory. Despite owning academia. And here one sees what tiny influence women hold on society, how little power they wield. Here one comes to notice how small and insignificant feminism is, how powerless and oppressed women are. Cue sardonic laughter. And it's rage-inducing. It's fuel for anger. And this anger, rage and resentment then furthers their narrative about the violent, the horrible, the woman-hating and oppressive male, getting all pissed off and riled up because someone dares look at how women are doing. The fact that the anger and the rage stems from the obvious truth that no one fucking cares to look at how men are doing, and with that I mean in truth and in fact, not in ideological gobbledygook, matters little. Their minds are made up. There is something wrong with men by men being men, not by how society treats and views their men, not by how society offers little in way of resources where the problems of men are concerned. A deep dive into men's health would be a nice gesture, a good starting point. Maybe do that before starting the fourth deep dive into women's health and well-being. Alas, no. The ones that decide what is and is not discriminatory have decided that the fault lies not in the constant focus on women and the issues of women, whether real or imagined, whether blown out of proportion or made to perfectly fit the frame of first world problems. Nope. It lies with men supposedly not wanting to share the limelight or whatever with women. As one comes to learn, all that is feminism is projection. These people do not want any focus on the issues of men, and so project this onto men, assuming that men feel the same way about the issues of women. Seemingly, they also project their own in-group preference, believing that this also applies to men. Solipsism, thy name is feminism. Yet, the truth remains. The problem is a simple one. The focus is only ever on women, and should one dare to state that one needs to look at the problems of men through something not tainted by feminism, the harpies come screeching and roaring, effectively shutting it down for reasons that the problems of women are more important and ever so neglected, despite the opposite being true. And so goes the wheel of remarkable repentance, round and round and round, and it never fucking stops. It is a perpetual motion machine, designed mainly to further feminism and the feminist narrative, designed to focus on women by neglecting men, or straight up flat out hating men. And the claim that it is not about hating men dies and waxes and wanes the moment one comes to realize that subscribing to the idea that men have spent all their time, since time immemorial, oppressing women and thus abusing women whether directly or by proxy, must necessarily mean that one also subscribes to the idea that men are morally inferior, that men are at their hearts wicked. If not held in check by the frail forces of feminism, men would do nothing but abuse and oppress. And this is not a good view of men, and it is the heart of feminist thought and dogma. For believing that men as a group have gone out of their way to oppress women is to believe that men as a group are not good people. Believing that only men have the capacity for abuse or the ability to rape is believing that men are morally inferior to women. And furthermore, getting this trash implemented into law Duluth model, Mary P. Cuts on rape, to name but two examples, effectively neglecting and shunning male victims of domestic violence and of rape by women under the pretense that only men abuse and only men rape is not exactly what one would label a loving, empathetic and inclusive view on men, now is it? Nor is it a realistic view of women to believe them incapable of evil. Mary P. Koss made it so that the rape of men by women is not labelled rape in the US. It is labelled made to penetrate, thusly not making it into the statistics on rape, effectively making it so that only men rape according to the statistics. The made to penetrate statistics and the rape statistics in the US, well now, the numbers are just about equal. In her view, you see, it is not proper nor suitable to dub a woman raping a man as rape. That is unwanted sexual contact. To her eyes, men are not traumatized by rape such as women are, and are as such not deserving of empathy in the same way women are. Her reasoning for this? Well, that is lackluster, and she does not appear to be capable of explaining her reasoning in any way except feminism and patriarchy and poor women. And I wonder why no raped or abused men were asked about men's experience with trauma, why their experience is discounted out of hand. The USA is not the only nation where this is the norm, and far from it in fact. And it is odd how few of these self-declared feminists, these coffee shop feminists, are aware of this, as all of them feign ignorance when this topic is brought up. Or are ignorant about it for that matter. They blame men for the rape of men by women not being taken seriously because men made all the laws and men don't step forward about being raped and or abused because of toxic and fragile masculinity. And this despite a woman, or several women, being behind this view and these laws. And one would not be amiss in thinking that the ideology of feminism has been forced into the minds, hearts and thoughts of people as the only movement for equality and the only path to equality, so that people subscribe to it without knowing shit about it. And this, in turn, goes a long way to explain the incredible defense this ism receives whenever challenged. No one knows anything about it, but the superficial level of it, that whole only about equality nonsense. If you disagree, you hate women. Pure and simple. Because of course one does. What else could one do? When an entire culture holds the belief that men cannot be abused by women and that women cannot rape men, the culture has been struck blind by the orthodoxy, has been struck dumb by the dogma, and has become accustomed to the sodomy and acted upon it by the zeitgeist that have decided that men don't matter, and when men have problems it is the fault of men because men made all the laws. Even when much of the laws are made by feminist women, even when the ideology of feminism and the remarkable glittering, sparkling and greasy foil of gynocentrism is made evident for all the world to see. All the world refuses to see it. And in a culture such as this, what is there really for men? What is there for young boys to strive for, when all they ever hear is that we must build girls up, we must help women, men don't have any problems, even when mutilating baby boys are legal where mutilating baby girls is illegal, women face all the discrimination, see, and men are at the heart of it all. And what the hell is there to do? How should a young man, how should a boy ever feel included in a society which has shown him, time and again, that it cares little for his well-being and even less for him as a human being? When he is not rewarded equal protection under the law, when the mighty screech of feminism protests shelters for abused men and their children, Earl Silverman is a great example of this here and Pizzy another, by making it so that these shall not receive government funding, that is to go to shelters for female victims, because they are all that matters. What in the devil is he supposed to do? Where is he supposed to go? What avenues are open to him in this society, split and divided, black and white and irrational, spiteful, hateful and ridiculous as it has become? Few, if any. He learns, often from the first day of his life, that his safety, his well-being, his life matters little when compared to that of a woman. He is taught to never hit a girl under any circumstances, even in self-defense. He is taught to step down so that she shall be pushed up. He is taught to protect girls and women with his life if need be. He is taught that his safety is of less importance than her safety. Add to this the biological urge to protect, the ingrained capacity for self-sacrifice, and things ain't easy. In addition to this, he is taught that he, by virtue of his sex, is violent, oppressive, and all around terrible. He is not needed, except when he is, because where have all the good men gone, and so on such. Then he is told that all of this is the fault of the nasty, naughty patriarchy, and that the only force that can help him is the only force for equality that matters, feminism, which is the same bloody force that have spoon-fed him all this negativity to begin with. Yet those are not the real feminist warriors for good, honest, decent equality. The real ones don't write the books nor the laws. They tumble about in confusion, ready to attack, harangue and shame anyone who does not support feminism. If you only join their tribe, he shall be saved. And so the cycle repeats and the browbeating continues. Walking away and dropping out becomes the only viable option after a while. His life has been spent being told and or shown that he is not wanted, needed or cared for, that he is dangerous and so and such. And what is the saddest part about this is that the dropping out, the walking away, is often marked not by him building himself up, but by him being beat down and beating himself down. It is considered a failure on his part. By internalizing the messages of his wickedness, his meanness, his failure, he becomes a shadow, a phantom, never doing anything but wasting away and fading away, working menial jobs, or not doing anything at all, never reaching his full potential. If dropping out was to be coupled with realizing his potential, however, if dropping out would lead him to discover his worth instead of considering himself unworthy, now that would be a remarkable thing indeed. That would give rise to something incredible. And that is where love comes into play. That is where empathy and compassion and all those other nice and nifty things come into play. Now, I would be the first to state that the term self-love is corny, cheesy and somewhat nauseating. I would much prefer to use the term self-respect. However, it seems to me that one cannot respect oneself if one does not also love oneself. Just as one cannot love another person if one does not respect that person. Love is a matter of respect, a matter of honor. And that would be the path of love, I believe. A pathway built by a respect for oneself, first and foremost. An understanding that one cannot build oneself up. One cannot truly and wholly respect oneself if one looks to other people for validation all the time. If one looks to other people for assurance that one is a good person, a decent person, a proper person, an all-around great guy. To me, it appears as though this was far easier prior to social media. And so here come the inevitable grumpy social media ruined social life part of the thing. Social media is fuel for the fire, where other people's validation of oneself is concerned. Now, one has the potential to have everything and anything one says and proposes, judged not by a few friends, not by family, but by the entire goddamned world. If one's view of oneself lies strictly in the validation and the reassurances of other people, and the entire goddamned world have the ability to validate or invalidate one, well, simply put, one cannot please everybody. It is impossible to please everybody in a small circle of friends, impossible to please everybody in one's own family. If, potentially, the entire bloody world is to be pleased, pleasing anybody becomes as impossible as pleasing everybody. For those who build themselves, the image of themselves, on the validation of other people, this constant stream of attention, whether negative or positive, cannot possibly build anything but an empty shell, a hollow husk, something that changes constantly according to the whims of the great magnet. The validation of other people is really not the best way to build self-respect. That has got to come from within. Being self-assured and brimming with self-respect, having the ability to clearly and succinctly state no when something goes against one's values, that is the mark of self-love, the mark of maturity. The mark of strength and of masculinity. Not going with the flow, but going against the flow, when need be. Finding strength in one's own validation of oneself, not in other people's validation of oneself, is not an easy task. Particularly not when the world is as the world is at the moment, where empty virtue signaling and pointless and symbolic acts of kindness, decency and morality becomes more important than actually understanding the cause one is supposedly championing. Look at me, they say. I put this frame on my profile picture. I am a good person because I support this case, which I only recently heard about, but everyone else is doing it, so it must be good, and I must be good. Validate me, please. Morality has become black and white. The world is split into good and evil, with no understanding of or ability to see the shades of grey. It is only ever this or that. And if you do not wholeheartedly support this, you must wholeheartedly support that. It has all devolved into extremes. Either it is that extreme, or it is this extreme. Disagreeing with one makes you an extremist of the other. In this zeitgeist, one is supposed to be a fully functional human being. When one's sense of self becomes so intimately linked to the validation of other people, often strangers, that one does not really know who one is, I fail to see how anything but confusion and fear and anxiety can be the result. And for men, for young men, for boys who are told and shown over and over, time and again, that they are not validated, they are not worthy, they are neither loved nor respected. Despair comes creeping in, with isolation being the end result. He must always and ever prove himself to be a good guy, not a bad guy, not like other guys and all that other stuff. And, one comes to learn, it is never good enough. He must open up about his emotions and then hear that women suffer with the emotional labor of having to listen to the feelings of men. One cannot win. It is made so that one cannot win. For isolation to be beat, for the feeling of isolation to become conquered, one has to learn to enjoy solitude, to enjoy one's own company. From this, I believe, flows the river of self-respect and self-assurance. In a society that is tribalizing, that has collectivized all its virtues and all its vices, in a society in which division has become the normal rather than the abnormal, going against the flow and embracing the non-conforming idea of individuality amongst other things, renders one a heretic. It is not easy to build self-respect when experiencing no particular sense of belonging in a climate where everything is about belonging to this group or to that group, where one's worth and value as a human being seems more tied to the labels one are either given or puts on oneself rather than one's worth and value as a human being. When once one has become accustomed to a label, be that label forced or self-chosen, one will experience difficulties with breaking away from that label and all the baggage that comes with that label. And so one will defend that label, or one will object to having that label, but the label will still remain, a mark of group identity wherein the human being, the individual, is forgotten and neglected. Suddenly, what one defends is not oneself, but the label, or one defends oneself from accusations of bearing that label, such as incel or misogynist. The human being is forgotten, the group identity becomes all, be that group identity real or imagined, self-chosen or forced upon one. And so, along with that group identity comes the vices or the virtues of that group identity for which one must either atone or be celebrated, all according to the whimsical wish of the great vulva. And that was that for this part. Please join me next time for more of the same. Thank you very much for listening. Should you wish to support my blog, my channels, my ramblings, my rants, and my descent into madness, please check out the links down below where you can buy my books and such. Please share, like, subscribe and all that other stuff, and I'll catch you next time. This is Muriel Gier, signing off.